Hello, and welcome back to Barn and Soul, the podcast where farming meets heart, history, and the rare and wonderful. I'm Kendall, and today we're doing something very different, something all of us need right now. Exactly right now. We can't wait 1 minute more because it is overwhelming out there. Headlines, and even this podcast at times, can make it feel like the whole world is falling apart. Like every environmental issue is a runaway train and we're supposed to stop it with our bare hands. But here's the thing. There is some good news. In fact, there's a lot of it. There are quiet wins all around, hopeful breakthroughs, stories of people, communities, and even entire landscapes healing or reinventing themselves. So, today, we are dedicating an entire episode to something rare in and of itself, which is environmental good news. Real stories from this year, 2025. And they're not fluffy, feel-good nonsense. We're talking actual data, actual progress, and actual reasons to feel hopeful. But before we jump in, as always, here are some fast facts. All right, our Environmental Hope edition. First of all, the World Database of Protected Areas reported that global protected land passed 17% for the first time in history, inching closer to the 30 by 30 conservation goal. In 2025, the U.S. Forest Service confirmed that pollinator-friendly habitat restored in the Midwest increased monarch butterfly egg counts by over 25% compared to 2022. A UN soil assessment showed that regenerative grazing practices improved soil carbon storage by up to 13% on small farms in pilot regions. Urban agriculture programs in major cities like Detroit, Providence, and Oakland reported a 40% jump in community-grown produce, shrinking food deserts. And the NOAA confirmed that North Atlantic right whale calves increased for the second year in a row thanks to expanded vessel slow zones. Okay? Ready for some joy? All right, no, really, let's get into some good stuff. Our first story today, renewables hit a historic milestone. And the source here is the International Energy Agency's 2025 mid-year report. Let's start big, like planet-sized big. In early 2025, renewable energy officially overtook coal as the world's largest source of electricity. Yes, really. Solar and wind saw enormous growth globally, but the surprise hero was India, which added record-breaking renewable capacity, more than any single country has ever added in one quarter. China expanded its solar mega projects. The EU passed new incentives for wind expansion. And even in the US, where progress sometimes feels glacial, the U.S. hit its highest renewable output ever recorded. This matters because it shows momentum isn't just possible, it's happening. And once infrastructure shifts at this scale, it doesn't easily reverse. It's like the world collectively hit upgrade on its power grid. And before I leave this topic, I would be remiss not to mention sort of the elephant in the room when it comes to solar power. Yes, solar has impacts, but they are usually lower than the alternative. So it's not impact free. Nothing is. But compared to fossil fuels, I think, and it seems to show, the trade-offs are drastically smaller and hopefully solvable. You know, I just recorded probably 10 minutes here of me describing all the ways that solar isn't as bad as they make it sound. From habitat destruction to material minings. It goes on and on. Land use concerns. And then I'm sitting here, I'm talking about all this stuff in my good mood, good environment news episode. And I'm thinking, this is not a commercial for solar. So I'll come back to this. Stay tuned for a future podcast episode about solar. But in the meantime, all you need to know is compared to oil spills, methane leaks, air pollution, mountaintop removal, pipeline ruptures, coal ash ponds, ocean acidification, and climate change, solar's impacts are smaller, cleaner, more solvable, and trending better every year. It's not perfect. It's just much less harmful. And that's all I could ask for. Next up, textile recycling breakthrough. Source is European Environment Agency in 2025. So this one is oddly emotional for me, and I couldn't tell you why per se, but a 2025 EU study found that if Europe increases textile-to-textile recycling to just 10%, it could solve 440,000 tons of CO2 and 8.8 billion cubic meters of water. Not to mention prevent hundreds of thousands of tons of clothing from entering landfills. So, recycling technology has finally caught up. Several companies launched commercial-scale fiber-to-fiber recycling, allowing old textiles to become new clothing without downgrading the material. This is huge. If this scales, fast fashion waste could legitimately start shrinking instead of ballooning. And for small farms, it means wool producers, like heritage breeds at Dalby, actually become more valuable because natural fibers outcompete synthetic waste. My Shetland sheep are cheering. But in all seriousness, this country, this earth, this planet, we have a consumption problem, and our landfills are embarrassing. And anything we can do, like this textile to textile recycling situation, let's keep that going, because what we're doing right now is gross. Oh, this one might be one of my favorites. I have loved these since I saw them. I don't know. Anyway, okay, wildlife corridors are working. According to the National Park Service and the USGS Joint Wildlife Connectivity Report of 2025, they published this incredible finding that wildlife crossing structures, those bridges and underpasses you sometimes see on those highways, I don't see them in Massachusetts. Tell me where they are. But they have reduced wildlife vehicle collisions by over 80%. 80%! And even better, genetic diversity in several species increased because animals were able to cross safely to find new territory. This is the whole game that people don't even know. They see animals in their backyard and they're offended. The animal is just trying to get from point A to point B. You know, they got to live too. Elk, mountain lions, coyotes, bobcats, they're all benefiting. Entire ecosystems are reconnecting because we broke them apart. But this is conservation that doesn't require perfection, just pathways. There's something actually maybe poetic and hopeful about it. This is all good and great and awesome, but where are these magical wildlife corridors? I haven't seen one. Okay, in Colorado, on Interstate 25 between Denver and Colorado Springs, a $15 million wildlife overpass is under construction, officially billed by the state as the world's largest wildlife overpass for large mammals in this region. And then in California, the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing at the Liberty Canyon Agora Hills It will span a major freeway, which is US 101, and reconnect the Santa Monica Mountains to surrounding habitat. Beautiful. I don't care that it costs $90 million. They are worth it. We should have designed our infrastructure like this from the beginning, and that wouldn't cost anything. Also, the federal government's Wildlife Crossings pilot program, which is under the U.S. Department of Transportation and FHWA, provides nationwide grants for these kinds of projects, totaling hundreds of millions. And it does show the scale. It's gone national. We'll take it. And yeah, so they're not cheap, depending on size, location, species, terrain, design, and whether you're building an overpass or an underpass. Costs will range from several $1 million to tens of millions of dollars. But a cost-benefit estimate found that a strategically placed crossing could generate $14 million in net societal benefits over its lifespan, by preventing injuries, fatalities, wildlife deaths, and vehicle damage. And it matters for ecosystems and for us because animals don't care about human roadmaps. They move where food, water, mates, and safety are. Roads break open their territories and isolate populations and reduce genetic diversity. It increases so many deaths from wildlife to human. Controlled, well-designed crossings bring everything back together. And one wildlife crossings program found reductions in collisions as high as 97% when fences and overpasses were combined. They are working in the U.S. and across the world. Animals are using them. Genetic connectivity improves. Vehicle collisions drop. Habitat fragmentation lessens. These are not theoretical fixes, they are real. And this should matter for a farm person like you and I, because farms live inside landscapes. We are more than just food producers and animal caregivers. We are habitat stewards. When a deer, a bobcat, a migrating elk, whatever, crosses through land safely, it's a win for biodiversity, for ecosystem resilience, for the land around our farms. It means less roadkill, fewer animals lost, fewer roadside injuries, stronger wildlife populations. That healthy land eventually touches our soil, our animals, our water, and our future. Coral reefs had a surprise recovery moment. According to the NOAA Coral Reef Watch of 2025, brace yourself. It's unbelievable. The NOAA reported that in several regions hit hard by bleaching events in the past years, coral regrowth was faster than expected, and heat-resilient strains of coral were expanding naturally. This doesn't erase the damage, but it means the corals are adapting, evolving resilience in real time. Some scientists are even calling it the coral comeback year. Nature is fighting hard, and sometimes she even surprises the researchers. And in 2025, the ocean plastic cleanup hit a major success. Something happened in the Great Pacific that scientists weren't sure they'd ever see this soon. If you've ever heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, there was actually a measurable decline in the floating plastic concentration, specifically in the zones where active cleanup systems were deployed. It was not we removed a lot, it was not we made a dent, but that we moved enough that the patch itself actually changed. I'm talking about a floating garbage island in the middle of the ocean, but still, guys, it's getting better. For the first time since monitoring began, satellite and drone surveys detected a decrease in high-density plastic clusters, a shrinking of the debris footprint in targeted areas, and fewer large objects like ghost nets and crates and bottles, etc., re-entering circulation. Also, the ocean cleanup team reached a symbolic milestone, which is over 10 million kilograms of plastic removed from oceans and rivers globally since launch. And remember, that is plastic that will not break into microplastics. That is plastic that will not end up inside fish or seabirds. And it's plastic that will not circulate endlessly in ocean currents. And that's not all, because rivers matter too. 2025 saw major expansions of river-based barriers and interceptors, the floating systems that catch trash before it enters the ocean. Countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand installed new units along high-pollution waterways, and early results showed up to 70% reduction in downstream plastic loads at several monitored points. And here's one of my favorite stats on this subject. The NOAA reported a 20% increase in coastal cleanup volunteer turnout in 24-25. It's the highest participation rate on record. People are not giving up. In fact, they're rolling up sleeves, grabbing buckets, and showing up. Scientists also reported promising early data that microplastic concentrations in coastal surface waters decreased in several cleanup zones, and turtle entanglement incidents dropped along beaches near managed river mouths. Plus, more recycling and reprocessing facilities opened in Southeast Asia, meaning less plastic leakage from landfills. Look, the long-term fight is massive, yes. But this year, it proved something important, that the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not a static monster. It is something that we can shrink. It is something we can reclaim, heal, piece by piece, system by system, with both innovation and community effort. And with that combination, technology meeting human willingness is what makes this feel hopeful. Because people are showing up and the ocean is responding. Community farming and urban gardens are flourishing. 2025 saw massive expansion in urban agriculture programs across the U.S., according to the USDA Urban Agriculture Census Addendum of 2025. Cities like Detroit, Providence, Oakland, Baltimore, and Chicago reported new community gardens, rooftop farms, hydroponic education centers, and public food forests. Detroit alone grew 1.3 million pounds of community-grown food in 24-25. And something I love, guess what demographic is rising fastest among new urban farmers? That's right, young people. Gen Z and younger millennials. People are reconnecting with the earth, not just on rural farms and seaside town farms and wherever farms like mine, but in the heart of the city too. All right. Last but not least, and it's only last really because there's going to be another full episode about this topic specifically, because at the end of the day, the hopes and dreams and goals of this podcast is to see what I'm about to describe next continue to happen. And that would be seeing major species recover, coming back. So again, sources here, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, it's a recovery update 2025, and then NOAA Fisheries, there's the California Condor Recovery Program, and the USGS Amphibian Research Center. But, species recovery. This is easily one of the most unexpected but hopeful parts of the 2025 Conservation Report. And that moment when scientists actively start smiling in an interview, that's how you know something big happened. Because several species pushed back against extinction this year in ways that felt kind of just downright miraculous. Let's start with the bird whose entire life story feels like a comeback novel, and that's the Kirtland's warbler. For decades, this tiny songbird hovered on the brink. Habitat loss nearly wiped it out. But in 2025, census numbers showed another population increase, continuing a recovery trend that began only after aggressive habitat restoration and management. Living proof that when we rebuild our ecosystems intentionally, nature will respond. And then there's the California condor. There are more chicks surviving. It's one of the rarest birds in the world, but it saw an encouraging rise in chick survival rates in monitored nests this year. This isn't thanks to decades of captive breeding, lead ammo regulation, and massive community-led monitoring efforts. Condors are enormous birds with enormous symbolism. If they can claw their way back, almost anything can. Then there's the North Atlantic right whale. For the second year in a row, the NOAA confirmed a continued rise in right whale calves. It's huge because this species is considered one of the most endangered whales on the planet, with fewer than 360 individuals remaining. New vessel speed rules, better fishing gear technology, and expanded monitoring zones contributed to this win. 2 years of growth might seem small, but for a species hanging on by a thread, it's everything. Amphibians are the quiet heroes showing resilience. You might not know this, but amphibians are typically the first to decline when ecosystems falter. But several species shocked researchers by showing strong resilience after wetland restoration. And that includes chorus frogs, spadefoot toads, and certain salamander species, and even some highly sensitive newts. Their rebound tells us something important. When you fix the water, the land, and the plant communities, life comes back fast. And every one of these wins is a reminder that conservation is rarely a wasted effort. None of these species recovered by accident. They recovered because people planted trees, removed invasive species, protected nesting sites. They changed laws, restored wetlands. They adjusted their fishing gear and cared enough to keep trying. Recovery is slow, fragile. It takes decades, but it happens. It is possible. And this year, it happened in ways that gave biologists, the people who always wait for the next bad statistic, permission to feel hopeful. Like I said, when a scientist starts smiling, even cautiously, it's been a good year. And because no Barn and Soul podcast is complete without a while we're at it, let's have a happy animal facts edition, shall we? Because joy is also part of conservation if you let it. Goats can form lifelong friendships. They have preferred partners that they will seek out daily. New research shows pigs dream in full sensory detail, just like dogs. Which is really funny to imagine Pickles and Pablo having dreams in their hay bed, their straw bed. Ducks show gratitude. They actually remember which humans feed them consistently. It is said that sheep can recognize up to 50 faces, both human and sheep, for years. Turkeys actually like to purr when they're content. That's right. They gobble. The males gobble and all. That's true. But if they're happy, they're going to purr. Cows produce more milk when spoken to gently, which makes sense. And you know what? I'm going to leave it right there. Ravens can remember a kind human for a decade. It's amazing. I'd love to know how they figured that one out. But sometimes the best environmental news is just animals being delightful. Okay, a little bit of reflection now before I say goodbye. What do we make out of all this? So we're living in a time where it's easy to believe nothing good is happening because good news rarely screams as loudly as bad news. But the truth is, progress is happening. Solutions are emerging. People care. Communities are mobilizing. Nature is adapting. And people like you, people who care, are part of the reason momentum continues. Hope isn't naive. It's necessary. And when you stack enough hopeful stories together, you start to feel something shifting inside. I don't know, not denial. It's not blind optimism, but it's a reminder that the world is still capable of healing, and so are we. So I hope this episode gave you a little room to breathe, a little spark of hope, and a reminder that good news is happening all around. It's just always going to be quieter than the chaos. If you learned something, if your heart softened a little bit, or if you just needed this today, I'm glad you're here. And until next time, take care. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, leave a comment, maybe a question I can answer in a future episode. Subscribe to the channel, you know the whole deal. And of course, you can visit dolbyfarm.com. We do ship nationwide. Our country store has something for everybody. So I hope, and please know that all purchases, I believe it's at least 50% of each and every purchase goes directly back to the care and upkeep of this family farm. So we thank you very much. I hope this finds you well, and we'll see you next time. Oh, and don't forget to appreciate the rare and wonderful things in life.